more
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. So I was doing. I started in more in musical theatre because there wasn't a lot of film and TV opportunities in Australia. It's a little bit of a small circle. It's always the same actors again and again. And it was funny because I had actually won my green card in the green card lottery to come over to the States. So I was like, okay, this is all just working out a little too perfectly. So then I came over and I've just always been a yes person. Like when opportunity just kind of arose, I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Let me give it a try at least, because the worst thing is you find out you don't like something, you don't want to do something, and you know, you let it go. But you know, I don't like to live with regret. I'd rather dive into an opportunity, give it a go. If I like it, you know, great. If not, we let it slide. We've been there, done that kind of mentality. So I was just jumping on everything that kind of came across my path. I ended up on feeding cupcakes to Mario Lopez for a TV segment. Ended up in this random commercial for these like Spanx type of leggings, which are now have gone global. I have friends like in other countries. They're like, "Is this you like promoting these like Spanx pants?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." So yeah, my life has just been very non-linear. It's just like lots of curves and but I would say it's just as a result from just saying yes to things and diving in and just being scared but doing it anyway. So
So how long have you been in the States now?
10 years. I
Oh, 10 years.
just got my citizenship towards the end of last year, so I'm
Ah,
all official. Yeah,
congratulations.
yeah. Thank
That's
you.
great.
Yeah,
Well, you know,
process.
our big topic today is on development, and so there's a, I mean, and that's just to the heart of that. I mean, we are often brought into situations where we have to change and evolve as a person, right? So I mean, going to a different country is definitely a big stimulus for that. Not to mention even going through a pandemic as we did this year. But
Yeah.
what are the, when you're talking about development, what are those things that you felt like, you know, you had to learn differently in the States versus Australia?
Oh, I feel like pretty much everything. It was, you know, because we grew up on American film and TV, and so you get this perception like that's how it is. But coming over, it was a lot harder because my credit history back in Australia didn't count for anything here. So getting an apartment was so hard. Like I felt like it was like drawing blood. It was just so difficult, you know, because no one, you know, I was also 22, so people were like, "Oh, you're young, you don't have credit history, we can't give you this apartment." So that was a challenge. Just like the basics, getting like a phone set up without a huge deposit behind it. You know, it was just the systems are just very different. I didn't know that the US still used checks, so that threw me off. I'm like, what? I need a check to pay rent with? Like, you know, going back 10 years ago, I think they've kind of advanced a little bit more since then. But it was just like, you know, it was a bit of a cultural shock. And, you know, being in LA, it's such a big city. I came from a smaller city in Australia. So it was just, everything was so much bigger. Just driving on the freeways. Like we have one freeway where I grew up. So I was like, oh my gosh, like how do I drive around LA? And you know, it just like little things like that, which now I look back on, I'm like, oh, that was so stupid. But coming like when I first landed, it was just a lot. It was just a big adapting period. But you
Yeah.
know, you just kind of keep at it, and you just I think I've been lucky because I do adapt pretty well. I think with my film and TV background, you're always doing something different. Things are always changing. Things are so last minute. So you kind of get taught to, or you learn to quickly adapt. I don't know that that lifestyle's for everyone, like changing country. Some people love to be, you know, in the safe zone, but I like adventure. I'm a little wild. So it's worked out pretty well. Yeah, and it's been nice. I've gotten to travel around the US. I had a job with General Motors, so I was traveling doing the auto shows for about 8 years as well, being on stage, introducing some of the cars. So I got to actually visit Denver, Boulder. Like I've been around Colorado a little bit as well. So yeah, it's just been an adventure.
Yeah, so that's good. Well, Sumit, you're a big traveler too, right? So you've gone to in many countries in your side of the world. How is it?
So it's been interesting. And yes, I've traveled a fair bit in Asia. I've been to a couple of places in Europe, and uh, it would be a little unfair to say I've been to the US because I've only been to one city, which is Chicago, and
Still counts.
still counts. But yeah, you definitely want to visit for longer. But I think it's extremely enriching, and one of the things I miss about my job is there's been zero travel for a year now. So
Yeah. Mhm.
I mean, I've had to resort to fake commutes to just get out of the house and feel like there's a little bit of travel somewhere, inside the city as well.
Yeah.
Where has been your favorite place to visit? Do you have like a favorite country?
But that's a really, really tough one because I enjoy mountains and beaches as well. So I have to say, Sri Lanka has been a favorite because it's got both. Uh, but one of the most unique experiences I had was Mongolia. So it's definitely the coldest place I've ever been to, and uh, walking around when the temperature's minus 50 Celsius is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
I've done minus 30.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
And
that's
in
incredible.
Fahrenheit?
Minus 50. Yeah, and Fairbanks, Alaska in February, 2 winters in a row.
Mm. Yeah.
And I grew up in Nebraska, and in Nebraska, it can get to be like minus 30. In fact, my sister is in Montana, and they just had like minus 20 for a couple of days. It was really cold spell up there last week.
Wow.
Whew. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's that's one thing I'm looking forward to is the summer now. It just it's been a tough winter where I'm at. Not a whole lot of snow, and so it's like it's if we're not going to have snow, we might as well just have some nice warmth. So
Exactly.
So anyway, we're coming close to the top of the hour here, so we will get started here in a moment. So let's let people join a little bit more. But Wendy, would you mind go ahead and putting up the title slide? We can get started.
There we go.
Perfect. All right, well, we'll go ahead and kick off things. So I just wanted to welcome everyone to the People Strategies Forum. We're a mastermind of leaders dedicated to creating those workplaces where people thrive and where our leadership can reward their people and where customers love. So that's the main purpose of our forum here, is make sure we educate and help everybody in the industry and human resources and leadership to be more impactful and have environments that are going to have where their people can thrive and customers will love working with your company. And so today, and just quickly to introduce our hosts here, my name is Sam Reeve. I'm the founder of CompTeam, and I've been in the reward space for over 20 years, working with some larger companies and also some small startups, and so all across the spectrum, but most in technology and finance and biotechnology and those areas. And then we have Shar Miller, who cannot be with us today because she is off on her Valentine's holiday in Belize, and so she is getting ready to fly back to the States, and she has to get that COVID test, right? So she's out there preparing to fly back. And then we also have Sumit here, which is Sumit is a very talented consultant with a rich background, worked in many places such as Aon, Deloitte, and Accenture. We were just talking, Sumit, we've been working together for about a year on CompTeam now, right? So it's been a pleasure having Sumit, and brings a wealth of knowledge and is a real specialist on the talent side. And then also, I would like to make a special introduction to Jules right before we get to Wendy. So Jules is a coach. She coaches experts and leadership on their presence online. And so I think that is a person that we're going to be interfacing with a lot in the future because of the new remote world that we're in. I think that's her guidance and thought leadership around how we can up our game as professionals and leadership across the globe is very important. So she's going to be a great contributor. So Julie is going to kind of monitor the chat and get her feet wet a little bit here today on the forum. Did you have anything that you'd like to say, Julie?
Oh, just good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be working with you all, and yeah, feel free to, throw in those questions and I'll get to all of them. And yeah, I think it's going to be a great sesh.
Great. So, and then of course, our special speaker today, Wendy Graham. And so Wendy and I have worked together in the past, and we've just started working together again and at Comp Team. Super talented person that knows how to onboard people and develop people. She's been spending over 21 years in her career doing this, and so we're fortunate to have her. And I'm just so excited to hear about everything that Wendy has to say today. A few things to think about as we're on this forum. We are multicasting through several different platforms. So you may be with us today live on Zoom, or perhaps you're on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube. If you're on those other platforms other than Zoom right now, you can participate in the chat there or leave some questions, and we'll get back to answering those. But unfortunately, we can't monitor all those platforms at once, so it'd be looking at Zoom and taking questions in the chat here. So with no more to do here, I guess we're going to introduce our topic. Our topic today is investing in your people for increased performance, and so it's all around development. And so Wendy, tell us a little bit about this topic, and how would you like to frame this in our new world of remote work?
Well, I think before we dive into the topic, do you want to talk a little bit about our sponsor before we get started?
Very good idea. Okay, so our sponsor, Tma USA. And so Tma, as we discussed many times in the forum, is a platform that's designed around talent management. And it's a little bit different than what we see in the US. This is a platform that was started out of the Netherlands in Europe. And the difference that you have between European culture and the US is that the US has traditionally been coming from a command and control type of environment, where in Europe it's more of nurturing and developing your people. And so as we are starting to emerge into that space now with modern people management, nurturing and developing and the humanization of people is quite important. And so TMA is now emerging into the US market as a critical tool. And so we're happy to have them as a sponsor and to familiarize you more with their process. They also have a special event coming up in the United States, or internationally actually, on February 23rd. They're hosting an international talent management forum. And so you can sign up for that forum here. Perhaps I can launch a poll to where you can, if you're interested in that, just drop a note in the chat and I'll send you the link, is what we can do there. And then I'll ensure that you get the invite. And but it's going to be a great session. I mean, right now we're almost full. So if you're interested in getting those last few spots, please put your name in the chat and I'll get you that so you can reserve a seat. All right. So let's talk about development and developing your people.
The way I want to frame it up today is to kind of talk about what are the challenges, and especially in the COVID world. And I want to talk about what are the opportunities. And that is, I think that's the piece that's where, that's really different in the way we think about it at Comp Team is, yeah, everybody knows about learning and development, right? And there's a million ways you can do it, and there's lots of different things. But the piece that I think that's missing is how do we tailor it to the individual? So that's, the opportunity, and then kind of talking about what are some of the solutions once we identified what our opportunities are, what are some of the solutions around that, and then what kind of results we can expect. So that's what I'd like to kind of talk about today with
So,
regard
so
to.
Wendy, let's just jump into those opportunities you're talking. What are some of the main things that companies are not doing when it comes to development? Where are they really dropping the ball?
Yeah, the challenge, I mean, there's a couple of pieces with regard to tailoring it to individuals. It's, a lot of organizations are very much in a cookie cutter approach, standardized. We have these classes, and, everyone needs to go through them in order to be, at our company or whatever. And there's just like sort of a in the box thinking about how we do development. And so being able to look at an individual and really understand what are their drives, what are their motivations, how do they like to learn? Do they learn in a classroom? Can they learn online? Can they learn by watching someone else? Can they learn by doing and practicing? Do they learn by getting a stretch assignment or being mentored or coached? There's so many different ways. But if we just apply a blanket approach to our teams, we're not going to get, we're never going to get results, and they're not going to be excited or motivated because it's not feeding their motivation. So tailoring it, and I was thinking about, it's like a suit, when you going to a fancy event and you want to look nice, and for men, and they buy a suit off the rack versus having it tailored.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? That this is what kept coming up to me. And then I was even thinking, like, yeah, you got that suit for the wedding 5 years ago, and then you have an event coming up, like, I'll just wear that suit again, and you put it on, and it doesn't fit the same
Yeah,
because you're a different person 5 years later.
right.
And I think that's a great metaphor for development, because also the timing, if you get, okay, let's talk about what women, they get their wedding dress tailored right before the wedding. Because what if you get it tailored a year before and you're looking all good and all that, and then, COVID hits and you put on the COVID-19, your wedding dress doesn't fit anymore, right? And the same thing with training and development. If you train me like way before I need the skill, I've already forgotten it because I haven't had a chance to use it, implement it, learn, find out what I have questions about. So the timing of this tailoring is really important. And that was just what came to me this morning, was like buying a suit off the rack versus having it tailored, and having it tailored in the right time so that when you show up to the event, it really suits you. Your suit suits you. Right?
Yes, something bespoke,
So
right?
I'm going to say the other challenge is, and I feel like a broken record when we talk about HR, but executive sponsorship. Okay. Executives say, yes, we need learning and development. Yes, we want to invest in our people. And they even have a budget for it. But my experience is that we say we're into it, we say we promote it, we have a budget, but when it comes down to actually giving our people the time to go and do whatever it is they need to do to feel energized and developed and work on whatever it is that they want to work on, we don't make the time.
Yeah.
We don't find the budget. I was thinking about a painful memory where I was allowed to pick a class that I was really excited about. And it was part of this, conference, the Association of Training and Development, so excited. And then the class was a couple days, like just leading into the big weekend expo where everybody's there, and it's international, and it's just so cool and energizing. If you're like me, you really get a lot out of that kind of experience. And my leader said, yeah, we're going to send you for this class. And then I just assumed that I was going to get to stay for the conference, and I was not allowed to stay. And
Oh,
so it's like they almost did more damage than good. It was almost like, yeah, it was really cool. I got to go to the class and I was like, I'm right here. It was like the outside looking in, and I couldn't go,
mm,
and it was like, why would I fly there, be in a hotel and not be part of the experience that could really energize me and get me to the next place so that I could be the kind of employee to help the company, take off.
yeah.
So those misses, and it was like a financial decision, which I
Mhm,
just thought was silly. It's like,
yeah.
it's not that much more to stay a couple more days and do the rest of the thing. And you can see I'm still sore about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
and it's
that's
an
what,
example. It's an example of when we don't have executive buy-in and we don't actually put our, money where our mouth is, and we don't actually make the time to make these programs happen. So I think those are the two big things:
yeah.
tailoring and executive sponsorship. What do you guys think? I've talked
Oh,
enough. I'm sorry.
So
yeah.
that's interesting, Wendy. And with your example of tailoring, so as a consultant, what comes to my mind is that a lot of times people want a tailored suit. So executives have the buy-in, they want a tailored suit, but they're not even willing to spend what a suit off the rack would cost. So that's one of the challenges I've seen. A bigger challenge I find, and I think the realizations hit harder as I've been trying to train or teach a toddler, my daughter, some things, is that we tend to prescribe learning. And as leaders, as executives, we try to push learning at people and say, hey, in my opinion, you should learn this. Instead of trying to figure out what are the drivers, and you did bring this up in the earlier part of what you said, without figuring out what their drivers are, what is it that they would like to learn. So even if with a strategic view as a leader, you feel something is important to be learned, you still need to convey your buy-in and get it across to the other person so that they don't feel like, uh, oh, it's yet another mandatory course, which if I do not take, they'll dock me performance points or give me negative feedback or just keep publishing my name over and over in some reminder dashboards and say, pull up your socks, people, pull up your socks.
Mhm.
So that's one of the things I feel strongly about. The other one is if you're investing in training, you also need to carve out the right amount of time, and you can't really expect that I do my day job, I balance work and life together, and deal with personal priorities, and also take out the time for learning because, in your opinion, it's the least that I can do. So you're spending the millions on training me. The least I can do is step up and create time by sleeping a few hours less or uh, by skipping meals and attending training instead or something of that sort. So I think that's got to go, and we need to build a growth mindset among people and help them in learning.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned, well, both of you mentioned, Wendy and Smith, is you were talking about leadership sponsorship, and then Smith, you mentioned the growth mindset. Now, the one thing I often find is that even sometimes leaders may allocate a budget for learning and development, may drive down and say or tell their managers that they need to ensure that they allow their employees time and so forth. But one of the common things, and Jules, you probably have experienced this as well, is that sometimes these leaders themselves don't allow time for their own personal development, and that's another failing. I mean, when you're out leading by example, showing that you have your coach and you're getting developed in yourself, and you're showing that it's important, then there's something that's quite missed. I think there's a big fallacy when we think that when just because you've got to the top of the organization that you don't need to develop anymore. I think is a huge error.
Yeah, I think that's the worst mentality, because yeah, like you were saying, leading by example, because you want to show that you are still continuing. There's always something you can learn, because with technology, for example, it's changing. It feels like every 5 minutes. So we have to keep up, especially if we want to be successful. We want to keep up. I mean, you look at like businesses like Kodak, Blockbuster, they didn't want to adapt. They didn't want to change. And now look where they're at. You know, Netflix is the new thing, and you got all these other like streaming services. So I think that's so important. It's so crucial. And a lot of people don't think that way, and they kind of want to cut corners. And so I love that you've touched on that. That's awesome.
In fact,
So
sorry.
Go ahead, Smith.
So I was just saying that to Julie's point of keeping up, I think keeping up is a little old school now, and you really got to keep ahead. So you can't really be looking at other people and saying that, oh, everyone seems to be doing training on machine learning or some new age kind of technology. So let me also follow suit and do the same. You got to be a little more predictive and say that, what are the skills that I'm going to need in a couple of years and get there. Also, I really like what Dave's saying in the chat, where he's using a custom steak versus a McDonald's analogy, and saying that he wouldn't really fill up people's time with something that doesn't add value. So just because somebody's got the budget only for a McDonald's hamburger, it doesn't mean it's right to fill up their time with something that's not healthy for them and something that's not right for the context. So I absolutely love that little analogy, Dave.
Yeah, and I think that it's important for us to distinguish the difference. I mean, of course, there is training that is required for us to ramp up or understand the environment of the workplace, those core values that we believe everybody should have. But there's also training that is used to increase the performance of that individual or for that person to advance in their career. And we need to really think about the way that they learn and so forth. But Wendy, I know that I'd really like to get to some of the solutions that you'd like to recommend here, because we've talked about a lot of the complications around training. What would you recommend as how we can improve and do this better?
I think the opportunity, like we said, is for leaders, first of all, to have that executive championship. There's a really interesting statistic in the LinkedIn 2020 L&D survey results. They said 83% of L&D pros say they support employee learning, but only 27% say their CEOs are active champions of the programs. So I think that is the opportunity, and where that comes down to is the leaders are championing the program and actually setting aside the budget, setting aside the time, and actually then now it's your actions speak louder than your words, right? So you said that this is a priority, now show me. And so as an employee, demonstrating to your employees that, yeah, you know what, we do care about you, we say we care about you, and we're going to show you by actually investing in you. And we're going to invest not just with some blanket training program that everybody goes through, but we're going to find out what makes you excited. What do you want to accomplish? What is the work that really energizes you? What are the skills that you are using or you want to develop? You know, what are your strengths? What are your development opportunities? You know, where do you see yourself in the near term, in the future term? And really taking the time, this just takes time. It doesn't even cost, money. Sit and talk one-on-one with each of your team members to find out what kind of investment can you make in them that's going to turn into an investment back into your company. Because if we invest in them and they get excited and they, develop whatever direction, it's not always up, right? We can spread out, we can upskill, we can reskill, right? And there's all different ways that we can develop. So finding out what is it that's going to get them excited, because they are going to that's going to come back to us as far as, you know, where the company's going, where the goal, where the direction of the company is. They're going to be, you know, contributing to that.
Right.
So that's the opportunity, is to not only say you care, but demonstrate it through your actions. So I think that is the big piece. And think outside the box, you know, think outside the classroom. There's so many ways to develop people that is not a webinar, that is not, you know, that traditional classroom format. And not everybody learns that way. And no, that's not even necessarily the goal, right? So find out what is the goal and then what would be the right strategy. Now, again, this isn't necessarily the leader's responsibility entirely. They create the space and they create the support, but this has to also come from the employee, for them to identify and explore, you know, what it is that they'd be really excited about and have a say in it.
So let's dive into that a little bit more deeply. I mean, when we look at who's responsible for learning and development, I mean, we have the employee side, and we have the company side, or the manager side. When we look at what is the employee's responsibility in this, and what is the manager's responsibility?
It is, you know, obviously the company has to have a culture. They have to have a learning culture. They have to have a development culture, and they have to have a budget for it. They have to set time aside for it, and then they have to come through on the goods. So the company sets the framework. The other thing they do is they give the ball to their employees and say, guess what? We have this framework. We have this culture. Now it's up to you to take some initiative, to think, you know, to be clear about yourself. So owning your own development is very important. But unless employees know that the ball's in their court and where the tools are to help them figure out, like, you know, give them structure on how to create goals, how to figure out where you want to go, how to, where are the learning opportunities, what is within, you know, what can they choose from? What's the list? Where's the menu of development opportunities? So
Yeah.
it is a partnership, but you go in the wrong direction when you don't give the ball to your employees and they think, oh, it's just my manager is going to tell me what's next for me. My manager is going to tell me what the career opportunities are for me.
Yeah.
No, I need to say to my leader, I'm ready for the next stretch assignment. I'm ready for something new. I want to become a manager. I want to become a specialist, whatever it is. And I don't have those skills. Help me. I want to change lanes. Help me change lanes, right?
Right.
So,
But one thing I think is super important, and I mentioned this because of my wife is a teacher. You know, she's the type of teacher that doesn't run the classes, but she helps the students stay on course. In getting them through and developing them, because I think that one of the things that happen, and if we put this in the mindset of managers as coaches, I think one of the big things that we need to understand about the human condition and human nature is that sometimes we're not thinking about ourselves and developing ourselves and keeping that top of mind. And so, and I think that a manager can bring that back into the forefront and say, hey, I think a month ago we talked about your aspirations to, move to the next level here, or perhaps try a new career, or develop this skill set, or become certified in this. What have you done? And what are the things that managers can do to coach their employees in that regard?
Sumit, I have a question for you with an international lens. Do you think there's a cultural piece here, like with what I'm saying about, and I love Letty suggested that it's a co-creation. I love that description of it. Does that apply in other places around the world, or is that too much of a US focused view? What do you think?
I think that's a great question and a really relevant one. So traditionally, in India and largely in Asia, what I've seen is that managers are seen as role models. So you'd actually wait for your manager to prescribe your learning journey to you. And it would almost be an act of insubordination to say that, no, I don't really agree. with the roadmap you've charted out. In my opinion, this is what I should be doing. However, because business is becoming a lot more Americanized, we've got American multinationals who are among the biggest employers in India now. I think that view is changing very, very quickly. So people are becoming much more demanding, and especially with the entry of millennials into the workforce, I think millennials are a lot more vocal about what their specific needs are. I mean, people from my generation or people older than I am would probably still, to an extent, wait for managers to prescribe something to them. But the next gen is not as patient as that at all. So they want to know precisely what you're planning for them. They want a say in it, and they don't shy away from making their feedback heard. So like Letty said, co-creation is definitely part of their game.
So what are some other things? I think you mentioned something, Wendy, I wanted to bring back up was the recognition that everyone has their own unique learning style. And we talk about this a lot in using the TMA method of I've showed the matrix box that shows what type of learner you are, but applying the right style is quite important. And Jules, I'd like to have your perception as well, because I imagine when you're coaching people on their individual presence, there's people that are introverted or naturally extroverted, that are very conscious of their appearance, and those that are outgoing. I mean, when what is your typical approach when you first meet a client to assess what their needs are?
Yeah, sure. So again, everyone's different. So you can't really give everyone the same kind of plan or coaching, because like you said, we all have different personalities. For some, being on camera and creating videos comes more naturally than others. So it's really just about sitting with them from the get-go, just seeing what their pain points are. Like, what is it about being on video that, for some people it's terrifying. They just like don't want to, even like film an Instagram story. So it's really just about finding what each individual fear, mindset around creating video, what pains them about being on video. It's really just getting down to that, because it really is all in the mindset, I think. Because once you get to that real deep rooted, that feeling that they have, that whatever's deep rooted in them, we have to get to the base of that. Because if we are just like, well, it's easy to tell you how to angle your camera, what lighting to use, but none of that is going to help if they still can't bring out their personality, if they're still too scared to share their message. So I really like to go a little deep in like the very beginning, so we can just find out what it actually is, and then we can start working on overcoming it. Because some people love the way they look, it's just a personality thing, or they don't know what to say. So just by knowing where I can help them, that helps me help them, if that makes sense.
Right. And I know, Wendy, we and part of the TMA method, where we're looking at a lot of people in our teams that we want to get to know it on a regular basis. We use assessments to kind of understand what those primary needs are, and then we have a discussion around it, similar to what Jules is talking about. So do you have any recommendations on other ways of identifying and leveraging a learning style?
Yeah, so that's really the solution, right? In order to tailor the suit and also have it be tailored just in time so that it fits right for the occasion. In this case, for whatever role you might want to be building up towards or taking on, or stretching into. Many organizations these days are using tools at the very beginning of the employee life cycle. They're using assessment tools to even find out if this person is going to be right for the organization. They've already taken the time to get that information, but what I see is that then that tool isn't used across the rest of the life cycle. We talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago. We were talking about onboarding, but now we're at the development stage. This person is on board, they're a performing member of our team, and we've got this treasure trove of information about them. these are scientifically validated tools. We've been talking about TMA method, predictive index. There's other ones out there. And they are just a great way to at least get an initial snapshot. Of course, we don't want to keep people in a box. You took a survey and these are your results. We then also want to have an individual one-on-one conversation to make sure that assessment is accurate, make any changes to it. Things do change. And so, but that tool, that's the treasure box, right? And so why we've already collected it before they even came in the organization, let's use it to tailor the suit. It tells us what are their talents. It tells us about their behavior. It tells us about their competencies. It tells us about their learning preferences, their work preferences. Gives us a lot of great information so that we can, if we need to submit as leaders, maybe suggest some options or, give them the menu of options, and also maybe say, knowing you in the way that I know, maybe being able to mentor with someone would be a great development opportunity. Or here's a couple of things that seem like they might be a good fit. What would you be excited about, right? And so it is that co-creation conversation. They may not know what what are the options. So sometimes we have to present those.
Right.
But yeah, so how do we bring in those tools to tailor the suit?
Yeah. So let me just bring up one thing. So we talked about having, doing the assessments to understand, what a person's strengths are. And I know that Dave Needham is on, and he has a brilliant tool. It's from OSOS, which helps in communication around. So Dave, if you want to come on and tell us your thoughts, about how your tool helps in development.
Yeah, thank you. No, I completely agree with you, Wendy. I think, there's so many resources out there, and I think much to Sumit's perspective and even Julie's perspective, and Sam, something you said too, is sometimes people don't know which direction to go, and they don't know what all the resources that are available, all those kinds of things, and you end up with the paradox of choice sometimes. It's kind of like going to the Cheesecake Factory and going, okay, I didn't realize I was coming to read a novel, but I just want a piece of cheesecake, damn it, which one's the best? And it's like, well, it depends. It's like, yeah. I think the same can happen, from a learning development perspective. What our platform does and kind of our approach is it uses crowdsourced feedback that's specific to the individual and specific to the organization. So it's built as a constant development engine that automatically matches development content. So if you're getting, this month you happen to be getting low feedback on organization, time management, and customer focus. Well, it could automatically say, okay, here are the 3 areas where right now you seem to be struggling or you have some opportunity for development. Here's some resources specifically for those particular things. It also, within the platform, because we have the data and all that stuff, we can say, here are 3 or 4 people who you work with who are rated high in those particular areas that you might want to reach out to. So it automatically, it automatically creates an individual development plan based on the feedback you're getting, and it's all in real time. So it adjusts as you, work on different things. There's always going to be things that end up at the bottom, but they rotate. Mm-hmm. Based on your improvement and things like that. But it also helps you not only create kind of a content-driven development plan, but also a mentor-driven development plan as well. So it uses kind of real-time data as opposed to assessments, which assessments a lot of times work from existing archetypes and existing competencies that are very well defined, but you run into the problem of then they become standardized across industries, across companies, across countries, across cultures, and sometimes they're just not applicable. It's like, well, I mean, I don't know if you've ever taken a 360 where 10% or 15% of the questions you're like, this doesn't really apply to me. Like really isn't my role. So one of the things that our platform kind of helps eliminate is that over standardization, but still providing a certain level of direction, so that it it doesn't rely on a limited amount of knowledge. It's we can bring in a huge huge breadth of content that speaks to whatever competencies somebody happens to be working on.
Yeah, and I know we weren't planning on this, David. Thanks for jumping in. I know that I saw you on the chat, and I was like, oh, Dave's on, so we can get his thoughts. So, but real quick, I mean, for people to learn a little bit more about your platform, can you just tell them where they can find out more information about you?
Yeah. So you can do, myohos.com, which is myohos.com, or getohos, and it's a play on the Spanish word for eyes, which is spelled with a J. We spell it with an H because didn't want to correct everybody's pronunciation. And the whole idea is predicated on people need more visibility to how they're doing, how they could be doing better, where they're doing really well. And then from a leadership development and or talent development perspective, also where are the resources that make the most sense for what I'm trying to work on or what I happen to be getting feedback on that I want to improve.
Mm-hmm. Great.
So, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Hey.
Something that popped up for me, Sam, and Dave, I'm curious too if this is, if there is any overlap with your tool or not, but, something we haven't talked about yet there was a comment on LinkedIn when we were promoting this webinar, was the person said, several jobs that they were looking at, they turned down because the company didn't have like a career architecture. They didn't have something in place to even show that, there's going to be an opportunity for you. And that's something that we haven't really talked about as much. We've been talking more about, is there a development plan in place? But, that's another piece, Sam, you're super active in, and Dave, I'm not sure how my OHOS works with that kind of piece, but I'd love to hear what you guys think about that.
Yeah. So
I'll let Sam go on this one. Yeah, I'll let Sam go.
Oh yeah. So I was going to say, the big thing is when companies are uber competitive for talent. I mean, we all hear about the war for talent, and then it comes and goes, right? Now we're dealing in a lull, but good talent is always important to find. And so how do you differentiate yourself? And one of the ways to differentiate yourself, and the whole list, when we look at the workforce experience, I mean, you can differentiate yourself through leadership and development and employee experience and a lot of different things, pay even, but one of the factors here that we're talking about is giving your people choice. So if a candidate is looking at working at your company and they feel, well, some people now they have the mindset of, okay, well, what's next? It's like, am I going to go in and start at this job, but do they have opportunities for me to grow and expand in my career and develop? And is that even available? And so companies that invest in career architecture have, career architecture is a fancy word of saying, okay, we have career paths, but not in the traditional ladder sense, in a matrix sense. So we have a lot of different opportunities to grow and develop at the organization. So companies that have that mindset are able to attract those candidates that are maybe choosing between, a company that does not have such a defined process. So it's a way to be more competitive.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think one of the things that we try to work with, both within the company I'm currently working with, and then using OHOS as a data point is, you need data that supports, some of the compensation and promotion decisions and things like that you want to make. And that's where kind of OHOS comes in. But one of the things that's interesting about the platform that we have designed is there's leadership recommendation and there's also competency, feedback. So you can figure out, is this person a subject matter expert, but shouldn't necessarily be in leadership? Or is this person reasonably good at what they do, but they are trusted by the entire team? And the way we visualize the careers, it's not, I think how it shows up a lot of times is it's an up, and it's, here's how you can move up in the organization from a vertical perspective and get into a leadership role, which of course everybody wants to move up. But then we say, if you want to stay within your current role, here's how you can develop laterally. We don't really do it that way. We do it as diagonals that kind of both go up, just in different directions. And it's like, if you're looking for people leadership, there's this path that, you know, expands your skills and abilities in this direction. And yes, there's earning potential that goes up. And if you want to stay kind of within the role, then it's more this direction and it's more on the technical side, which still has a path up for, you know, opportunity in terms of role, responsibility, but also increases the depth of your understanding, and there's increased earning potential. So we started breaking down the whole idea of moving up within the organization means you're moving to a leadership role. It could just mean you're moving to a higher level of contribution, and that could be individual or from a leadership perspective. So I think even how you visualize it can change, can start to change the paradigm. So people see that there are two paths, and one isn't necessarily better than the other. It's just different.
Yes,
You're my hero. So important. Yes, Letty is commenting on the chat too. She's also clapping. That is well said.
yeah. So this brings up one of my favorite books that I typically bring up in this topic is Up is Not the Only Way, and that's let's see, that's by Beverly Kay. I feel it's a great read about how to have career pathing that's not just linear, but a lot of different options. And so I recommend that read a lot. So one thing that you said, Dave, that I just want to bring up and get the group's perspective on is the different types of development. I mean, when we think about development, it's not just, you know, their knowledge, skills that need to be developed. I mean, sometimes it's behavior, sometimes it's relationship wise, and so forth. And so we're looking at multiple of different things. And so I think it's very important for managers to keep that in mind. What have you seen in that regard, Sumit, with some of your clients? Are they thinking of development in a multifaceted way, or is it usually just around those skill sets for the job?
So a couple of thoughts here, Sam. One, since you brought up Beverly Kay, she has another book which I think is really meaningful. It's called Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go.
Oh.
So it talks about how there are so many options open to employees, and it's very easy for them to just hop onto the gig bandwagon and leave what they're doing. So it's a manager's responsibility to not only create a roadmap, but also sell the roadmap to an employee. And one of the examples I saw of how this failed spectacularly was during my time at a large multinational. The organization invested a lot of money. So they spent about, I think, $5,000 per individual in training people on data analysis and machine learning and AI. And this was a certification from a major North American university. And I actually heard a manager tell one of their people that we're spending so much money on you. The least you can do is attend and complete all the training activities. And the person says, why? So there was no defined outcome to this. There was no clear roadmap identified. So they just said it's a mandatory activity, and the company was almost making it sound like a favor. So I think what clients need to remember is you're not doing an employee a favor by training them. You're investing in training because it serves some purpose in reaching your larger objective. So you're trying to build a better, faster, stronger top line and bottom line. And that's where training comes in. But at the same time, you need to tell the employee what's in it for them as well. And that's what I find a lot of clients are missing out on. And that's why training still is more of a prescription. And during my time at Deloitte, I used to be the champion of a survey that we used to conduct called the Human Capital Trends. And this was a finding that we had there as well, that organizations think of learning and development as a strategic intervention, but very few are actually ready to deliver on the right kind of promise. And very few employees feel invested in what the organization says is our goal for learning and development. So I think that alignment, that co-creation, it really needs to happen. And we need to chart out what next. So, all right, fine, you're investing in training, you're spending money, time, giving me the materials, but after I finish the training activities, what's next for me?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's so important. I think that's right on. And of course, this is a topic for a different day, but I just want to acknowledge, Letty is on our chat as well, and we all know Letty to be an expert in psychological safety. And of course, what learning and development can take place if you don't have the psychological safety as a basic threshold. So it's important to point that out, is that for us to have effective training programs and development, there needs to be there are other needs that need to be met before we can really have this be effective, and just like a lot of other programs. So you have to take the entire portfolio of the employee experience into play. So,
And Sam, something you and I have talked a lot about is that that trust, to be able to have that conversation with your leader to say, I want to change lanes. And that might mean, leaving this team, leaving this department, whether it's staying within the company or even helping them transition out of the company, right? That is our roles as leaders. And if there is no trust, then your employee is not going to have that conversation with you. And if you have not proactively started those conversations to say, I'm here to support you as a human being. Obviously, we want you, I'm excited to have you on my team. I think you're a great contributor here. You're making a difference. But at the end of the day, I mean, even our brand as a company relies on us having that trusting relationship, so that if that person says, I don't think I'm right for this company and I'm going to move, I have a great opportunity to move on, or I want your help to help me move on to achieve my dreams, that person will look back and later on they'll say, I had this amazing leader and they helped me live my dream, whether it was at that organization or outside. And if you don't have trust and you're not having those conversations, you are going to be blindsided. And, like the comment in LinkedIn where the gentleman just said, I didn't take that opportunity, or I left that company because there was no, there was no opportunity there for me. And you get blindsided as a leader unless you're having those conversations.
Right. Well, we are approaching the top of the hour, so I just want to give us a moment of pause here. And I know we can get to some questions if anybody has any questions that haven't been identified. But really quick, I do want to share and bring more attention to the Tma International Workshop once again, just to ensure that everybody is familiar with that. If you've joined us here, just 1 second, I'm having trouble.
There it is.
Screen. There it is. Okay. So the Tma International Workshop is on the 23rd, and we do have a lot of top-notch speakers that are going to join us there to talk about integrated talent management. And so if you haven't signed up already, we still have a few slots left. You'll see that on LinkedIn that there's some availability there to register, or you can drop it in a chat here. And I'll make sure that you get a link to register. So just let us know if you're interested in there. Also, like I said, when I started off, this particular session is being multicasted, but you can also find or download it if you missed the first part. You can go and catch it on Facebook, or I believe LinkedIn allows you to also see that, so you can catch up there as well. All right. So Wendy, given to where we're at, any final thoughts? What are the results that a company can expect from having great development programs in place?
Well, if we are investing in our employees and they're engaged, then they're going to be more productive. They're going to, the teamwork is going to be there. The trust is there. They're going to show up fully. They're going to bring their A game. And so it ultimately does benefit the company. And so if we could, these learning and development programs, I think we discussed, it's like they're just at their infancy, despite everyone recognizing that it's so important. They're really not highly developed. And I do think that is because learning and development generally has a hard time showing their value. And that's something that we have to do a better job of in order to, keep getting the buy-in and the budget and the time for it. But it ultimately it's that, oh my goodness, the three rings that combine, that intersect. There's something right in the middle.
Venn diagram.
Venn diagram. Thank you. Oh my goodness. I lost my word. But yeah, it's the Venn diagram of where the passions of the employee, their talents, and then the goals and objectives of the company meet. And it's that sweet spot. And so that's really what we get when we spend the time to tailor the suit that fits right. They feel good. They're ready to stretch into a new role or, take on something new, grow. Yeah. And we're
I
really
think
treating people like humans, and not like cattle. And that's really where we want to get to.
Or resources.
Oh, absolutely. So I really love what you said about engaging people. Wendy, it brings a Richard Branson quote to mind where he once said that train people well enough so that they can leave, but treat them well enough so that they don't want to. So I think learning is an integral part of the workforce experience, and you definitely can create a more engaged and a more productive workforce if you simply invest in the right kind of learning and you get people to look forward to it and buy into it.
Totally agree. But and also, just to point this out, having those important coaches in your life is super impactful. Matter of fact, I noticed that Linda Rad was on the call today, and also an excellent coach if anybody's looking for a coach in the HR field. So yeah, definitely. I mean, I have my coaches. It helped me for developing my business, developing my practice, and my mentors. There's direct mentoring and reverse mentoring. I don't know how many times I've gone to my kids to have them tell me about how to figure out social media and all the technology things that they find so easy and I find so difficult. I think that it's important for us to, as leaders, to recognize that we do have strong skill sets here and there, and we also, everybody has their weaknesses, right? And it's important for us to continually strive for that improvement and acknowledge those areas that we're not strong in, and help others that in those areas that we're an expert in or that are our dominant skill set. So to give, so it's critically important. Well, I know we're just about out of time here. Does anybody have anything else to say before we wrap up? All right, great. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thanks for letting me be a part of it.
Yeah, no,
Thanks for jumping on, Dave.
Yeah, I was happy to be a participant and listen to the expertise. So glad to hear from you guys, and it's always nice to feel that we're not alone in what we're trying to put forward, right? It's like, there's more than just this me or the small people that the small group that you kind of associate with. It's always nice to get kind of an expanded view of, there's a lot of people trying to change the world in the positive direction, and hopefully we can overcome the status quo inertia for a lot of organizations that still struggle.
Absolutely. I think that these remote gatherings where we can get together and share expertise has become really powerful. And so I appreciate everybody out there and on the chat and our listeners. It's great to have. That's the reason why this forum is together, is to bring all of us to share ideas and grow as individuals. So thank you. All right, everyone. Well, you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week. Oh, let me just cover what we're talking about next week. We have a very important speaker here, and it's our very own Smith is going to be talking about what COVID-19 means for succession planning. And I think also Shar is going to join you in this discussion. Is that right, Smith?
Absolutely, yeah.
Great. And so look forward to seeing everybody next Wednesday. and have a safe and wonderful week. All right.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.